Hey, and welcome to session 4 of Personal Finance 101. For the past 3 weeks, I have been giving my 2 cents, as much as it's worth, on some key tips or some foundational things that should help you with managing your personal finances. As I've said before, I'm no chartered financial analyst. I don't have an MBA with any fancy letters after my name, and I'm in no way professionally qualified to give you any advice, so please do speak to an independent financial advisor before you start making any decisions. But what does qualify me in a way to at least talk about it is some hard-earned lessons and experiences that have really taught me different things that I could be doing to manage my money better. So, in the first 3 sessions, I've talked about number 1, knowing your starting point, knowing your net worth, and from that point, being able to understand your assets, your liabilities. If you're interested in finding out more about that, I'll put a link to that just underneath this blog. In the second one, I looked at getting a grip on a system, so understanding a budget, how you break down your finances. And then in the third installment, I talked about having a meeting with the boss, which is ultimately yourself, sitting down with yourself on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and reviewing your expenditure and seeing whether or not your daily habits are going to take you towards that financial goal that you have. So today is week 4, and it's called Getting Your Mojo Back. I got the idea of Mojo from Scott Papin, the Barefoot Investor. He talks about the importance of savings, which isn't all that sexy as a concept. But the reason he talks about Mojo is if you know that you've got a certain amount of money stored in the bank for emergencies, for particular travel, if things go wrong, if life just happens, it really helps you keep your mojo. I've talked before about how the impact of money can be deeply, is felt deeply emotionally. We can be pragmatic about it, but as humans, we're not android, robotic, fully systematized beings. We are very emotional, and we are driven by our feelings and our past experiences. So, money's emotional. Get your mojo back by having some form of savings. But how do you go about that? Well, here's a couple of ideas. The first one is what Scott Pape talks about is that everybody should have at least $2,000 in a Mojo account. So this account for me, for example, is kept separate from my day-to-day banking. So I have it completely removed. I put it in an online savings account. Often you find that online savings accounts can give you higher interest rates because they have fewer overheads as banks. In Australia at the minute, there's some great deals from ING, from me.com and from UBank. Put your money into that savings account, keep it separate, have it relatively easy to access in the case of emergencies, but not part of your current account, because if it's part of your current account, all it takes is one little whoop on payday or one little whoop when you fancy a TV or you fancy a bit of a splurge. Before you know it, you're eating away into those precious savings before they've actually got anywhere. So Mojo Part 1, put $2,000 into your savings. Mojo Part 2 is to have between 3 to 6 months of daily expenses covered by your savings. So say, for example, if your daily expenses, i.e. your food, your car, your insurance, your travel, equates to $1,000. It was a bit of blue sky thinking, but equates to $1,000 a month. Over 3 months, that would be $3,000. Over 6 months, that would be $6,000. The idea is that if something goes wrong, or if you need to take a break from work, or ultimately if you just need to cover your expenses while you focus on something else, you've got that there just in case. And in the same way that the little bit of mojo, the $2,000 helps, knowing that you've got 3 to 6 months worth of your daily expenses covered, if anything happens, really helps you to make more balanced, healthy decisions in relation to career, but also in relation to your life. So that's one thing to bear in mind. But what if you've never started saving before and you don't know how to go about it? Well, one idea is to treat it like a tax. The minute my money comes into my bank, I pay myself first. I put 20% of my salary into my savings straight away, and I treat it like a tax. In the minute it comes in, it goes straight out. It's not a negotiation. It's not something I need to think about. I've already budgeted to ensure that I can afford that. If you're treating it like a tax, then it doesn't really feel like a sacrifice. You don't have this battle with yourself about wanting to please the future self as opposed to the current day self that actually just wants to go and splash it out on things. Also, please don't underestimate the power of compound interest. It is absolutely killer when you think about the money that you could be accruing if you put your money into a high interest savings account and just leave it there, contribute regularly. In the returns may not be big within 2 to 3 years. In 10, 20, 30 years, you can be earning 150%, 250%, 350%, up to over 1,000% over a 40-year period, for example, on a savings account that has a 10% return. That's crazy money. That's a lot of numbers and crazy money. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is save as quickly as you can, save with the highest interest that you can, and do it automatically. Another way to automate it on a lower level is to use an app like Acorns. I use this every single day. What Acorns does is it takes your spare change from your bank account and invests that. So what's your spare change? So say, for example, if I spent $4.50 on a coffee, $3.60 on some kale, $5.40 on some transport, it would round up each of those amounts to the nearest dollar, and as soon as I get $5, it would then invest it into whatever portfolio I choose. What this means for me is it's actually quite a low risk investment for me, but it's also a way of forcing me to save, and it's doing it automatically. We read so much about decision fatigue and how you really want to make your decisions simple and automate as much as you can to free up your brain space for the thing that matters. So that's why I use Acorns. Works really well for me. I've saved a couple $100 over the space of a month just doing that, and it means that every time I tap that card, I'm a little bit more gleeful, because not only am I getting food for my belly or coffee to keep me perky and keep my colleagues not hating me, but it means that I'm investing every single time. Just an idea. So treat it like a tax. Make sure you've got your Mojo and automate it while you can. The only other thing I was going to say is having a Mojo account or an emergency fund, especially as you're looking to get yourself out of debt, really, really helps. Because the thing is, if you're only just starting to build a budget or work out how to work out your day-to-day finances now, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to go backwards. Life is never really linear. It's more of a cha-cha slide, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. If you do make mistakes, what you don't want to be doing is dipping back into those credit cards or getting into poor spending habits because you haven't quite learnt your craft yet insofar as managing your personal finances is concerned. But if you've got $2,000 sitting there for you, you can use that to help you. I'm not encouraging you to dip into your savings, but it's good knowing that you've got the security there if things don't quite go to plan on a monthly basis. If you surrender control of your money to credit cards or to payday loans, which are awful, you're surrendering control of your life, because being in debt literally just, it affects every single decision that you make. It's like a millstone around your neck, and that's why I'm so passionate about getting out of it and helping other people to do the same. Sheeps, same thing, right? So yeah, just an example, just a couple of rambling thoughts that I had that will hopefully help you to save a little bit more. I will put some links to some resources that I find particularly helpful. Do check out A6 Money Planner. They've got so many good budgeting tools, as well as little calculators that may help you. Do speak to an independent financial advisor before you make any decisions, and make sure that you're clued up, because what better thing to invest in than your own personal development? You can never stop learning. Hope this is useful. Love you very much. I'll see you next week for the 5th and final installment of Personal Finance 101. Take it easy.